All these crooked cases are brought about by the Justice Department in one form or another and crooked Joe Biden. He can't put two sentences together. He can't speak. He can't think. He can't walk. He can't do anything. So the only thing they can do is go after his political opponent, a guy named Donald J. Trump. It's really about election interference at its worst. This is usually used by third world countries, but never by the United States. So we've become a third world country in many ways, whether it's voting or borders or right now election interference. It's a shame. It's sad. But remember this, November 5th is going to go down as the most important day in the history of our country. Get out and vote. And you're going to have another group voting at levels that nobody's ever seen before. I call it Christian visibility. They're going to be visible because they're going to be at the polls. They're going to vote like they've never voted before because everything, including religion, is under siege, and we're not going to let that happen. Thank you very much.
It's showtime.
Do you realize you're watching a movie? Can you even believe that we have a current president who is actually trying to put his opponent in jail? You have to admit, it's a real novel campaign strategy. It's funny how these nuts all scream about Putin and Russia, and yet they do the exact same thing that dictators do. But make no mistake, you are absolutely watching a movie starring Donald Trump. And just so you know, the curtain rises on Monday in New York City. The actors, they've been cast. The script, it's been written for quite some time, and we all know how it's going to end. They are going to convict Donald Trump. There's no doubt about it. It truly is showtime. Do you want some proof that this is actually a movie that you're watching? You won't believe what I'm about to show you. Watch how these news organizations are covering the New York trial. As you watch this next clip from MSNBC, I want you to remember, just really let it sink in, that you're watching a national news network. They actually aired this on MSNBC.
While you are sitting there in the jury pool, listening to the judge describe this case to you, Donald Trump is sitting at the defense table looking like this. Let's take that back down to a half screen.
He actually said that. He actually said that and then showed this picture of Donald Trump as if that's how he's going to look to potential jurors.
Of Donald Trump. Now, we normally don't allow Donald Trump to occupy your full television screen during this program.
So you were a news program, supposed news program, but you won't allow when he was president, nor as the ex-president, candidate to be president again, you don't allow him to occupy your full screen. Got it.
But for this one time, as you consider yourself sitting there on Monday in the position of a juror looking at him, let's look at what they will actually see without hearing a word from Donald Trump. And for that, we're going to go back to the full screen so you can take in what this man actually looks like now.
That's what Lawrence O'Donnell is actually telling his audience of trained SEALs, I guess, because they think that that's how he looks. He walks around with his mouth wide open all the time. It's not a freeze frame. That's how he looks.
Is likely to be sitting there as he is in this recent campaign videos. That's a picture of him when he's trying to look his absolute best in his campaign video, which
again, keep remembering it was broadcast on a live, nationally televised broadcast.
His mind includes a face partially covered in some form of homemade bronzer in which he always forgets the ears.
This guy's a billionaire, and he's covering his face in some kind of homemade elixir, some bronzer that he puts on, but he's so stupid he forgets to rub it on his ears. That's what he just told his audience.
He always forgets his ears are visible, showing the real color of Donald Trump in contrast to the mud brown that he has decided makes him look his best. And to some eyes, actually makes him look like a horror movie character.
I'm pretty sure I've never heard anybody other than maybe some crazy lefties screaming in parking lots that Donald Trump looks like a horror movie character. But you carry on, Lawrence, carry on.
That is not a face you want to present to a criminal jury whose job it is to concentrate on the evidence in the case. Those jurors will be listening to Judge Merchan's questions while having trouble fighting the urge to steal another peek at that profoundly strange-looking man sitting at the defense table, whose voice they will probably never hear in court.
Go ahead, admit it. If I hadn't shown that to you, and I just said this is something he said, you wouldn't have believed me. But that was 100% real. That was actually shown on a news network in the United States. Supposedly, they talk to themselves and tell people that they are unbiased. That's obviously the opposite of being unbiased. It is amazing where our news organizations have taken things to because of their loathing, their just complete disgust with Donald Trump. That was 100% real. Just imagine how many people at that network that had to sign off on that program being broadcast. How many executives said, yeah, that works for me. Let's go ahead and put that on the air. That's how bad things are in the broadcast industry in the United States. If you thought that was bad, if you said to yourself, what the was that? Wait till you see what CNN put on just this morning.
Donald Trump is going on trial. His delay tactics and legal maneuvers seemingly exhausted. Jury selection set to begin Monday in New York in the former president's hush money trial. That process expected to take a week or possibly longer. Judge Juan Merchan says he expects the trial to last 6 to 8 weeks. Trump is required to attend every day.
Now understand, that was also a tactic. They wanted to make sure that Trump wouldn't be on the campaign trail. How do we get him off the campaign trail? Because usually in trials, you don't have to show up every single day, especially for the minutia of this kind of stuff in terms of trying to pick a jury. But they're going to make him show up every single day. But you know Trump will make this to his benefit, which is much to the chagrin of these networks.
And while that could limit his ability to hold rallies, he has shown plenty of willingness to turn courtroom appearances into campaign events. In the run-up to the trial, Trump keeps making the same claims that all the cases against him are politically motivated.
All the same claims that the cases are politically motivated. She sounds like your kindergarten teacher trying to chastise you. Jimmy, Freddie, Barry, go ahead and make sure you stop handing notes across the room. This is some serious business, except for you buffoons sitting here passing notes. God, could she be even more condescending than she is?
All these crooked cases are brought about by the Justice Department in one form or another and crooked Joe Biden. The only thing they can do is go after his political opponent, a guy named Donald J. Trump.
So let's just be clear that that claim is not correct. The hush money.
Okay, so let's be clear that claim is incorrect. How do you know that? How do you possibly, in what world would you possibly know that claim is incorrect? But then it doesn't matter because you're on CNN, you can just say it. You have no idea. You just told your audience, hey, disregard that. There's no way that's true that the DOJ has been involved. None.
The DOJ, the White House, have no involvement here. But
see how I've said it before in my other videos. You see how they subtly insert that just to try and tell their audience, disregard what you just heard. It's not true. Their audience, I tell you, are trained SEALs.
Trump is likely to keep making that claim, as we know he does, when he holds a rally tomorrow in the critical swing state of Pennsylvania. Our panel's here. Republican strategist Sarah Longwell, former Obama White House senior policy advisor Ashley Allison, and Isaac Arnsdorf, who's national.
All right. Okay. So the black woman is a former Obama White House evangelist. The white guy is from the Washington Post. The white woman with the glasses, they say she is the House Republican. Now understand, as you're watching this, her being the House Republican, she actually works for the Bulwark. I guess she founded the Bulwark. She's the kind of Republican that we would say rhino. In fact, she's even worse than a rhino. She openly is raising money and doing things because she basically is a founding member, a card-carrying member of the Never Trump movement. But they never disclose that to you. I'm telling you, go look her up on Wikipedia. Go look at her website. She is Never Trump. But they don't say that on the air. You would never know who this woman is, except for the fact if you did some research on her and found out she hates Trump, but they pass her off as the token Republican.
All of the time. What do you hear from them about what we're about to see unfold here?
Well, first of all, there's so many cases against Donald Trump that for voters, a lot of this is white noise. They can't really tell all of the cases apart. That being said, as they come into singular focus, as he goes into trial, I've never liked this one going first because...
Now, all real Trump supporters love that this one goes first because it has the highest likelihood of being a complete carnival and getting tossed out. She doesn't like it going first because she wants a strong conviction. Right there and then, she told you what she's all about, but you wouldn't know that if you didn't know her history.
Because just the word porn star, which you're going to hear over and over again, is just the kind of thing that makes people laugh it off as not serious.
It is a laugh. And I'm sorry, but you can't get away from the fact of who Stormy Daniels is. So you don't want to hear it, but I guarantee you it's going to be said over and over.
Even though this is about, corporate checks being passed and trying to hide things before an election so it didn't get out.
That's not what it's about. That's not what it's about at all. And you'll see that Monday. They've been talking about this for months as a, quote, hush money trial. There's going to be something that's shown. That probably won't be Monday because Monday's just jury selection. But you're going to see some evidence that this has nothing to do with being a hush money trial and everything to do with a misdemeanor accounting problem. Just remember, I told you that.
Even though that's what it's about, the voters are going to interpret this one more, I think, a little bit more through Trump's frame as this is them trying to get me on something silly than they would something like the January 6th case or the documents case, where when they are taken singularly, seem more serious to voters than this one does.
None of it seems serious to the voters. I hate when these people get up on stage and they pontificate and tell you what you're thinking.
Ashley, do you agree with that assessment here? And also, if you're the White House and you're the guy that you're running against is about to go on trial in New York, surely your apparatus is doing something to prepare for that. At least you're.
So just a second ago, she said the DOJ and the White House have nothing to do with this. However, now you just said certainly the White House is going to use some of this as ammunition against Donald Trump. Interesting.
Campaign certainly should be, even if it's not in the White House. What do you know about what they are going to do next week?
Well, it's clear that the Biden-Harris campaign is going to use Trump's criminal issues as a reason why voters should not trust him.
Boom. Now understand, in this country where she's sitting, where I'm sitting, where probably you're watching from, the criminal issues she's talking about are allegations. So if the Biden administration is immediately going to begin using these trials to raise money, to try and dissuade people's opinion, remember in America, as far as I can remember, it's still you're innocent until proven guilty. Innocent. So if you're going to jump the gun and begin using this as fodder for a campaign, you are essentially trying to taint people's minds. You are purposely putting out misinformation, as they call it, because as of today, Donald Trump has not been convicted of anything. He is no different than you, no different than me. He has not been convicted of the crime for which he has been charged. But nonetheless, she just said they're licking their chops. They can't wait. They're going to go after Donald Trump every single day with whatever gets in the news. How can someone who doesn't have any involvement in this case feel that's okay?
The campaign is going to be blasting it out, using to fundraise. I'm sure, the RNC and the Trump campaign does not have as much money as Joe Biden. So the Trump campaign will be using his court appearances as free political rallies, basically. And
I got to talk about that. So they've had this big thing about how Trump doesn't have nearly as much money as, the Biden campaign does. Now, understand the reason why that matters to them is because, as she said, they're going to blast it out. They need to use television. They need to pay for commercials. They need to basically bribe the networks to put all this stuff out. Meanwhile, there's many people like me, there's many people like you. We're all talking. Trump doesn't need to spend $1 gazillion on television. He's got us. He's got a legion of people who get the word out and spread information, real information, not some ad, not some commercial you run on CNN.
when he does that, he says these off-the-cuff things that sometimes do not land as well as you would like them to for your everyday voter. And they'll be using those, repackaging those, and send those out to say, see, this is just the case yet again of why Donald Trump is unfit to be president. Now, will that work?
You heard what she just said there, right? She just said they are going to repackage and blast this stuff out to show you, convince you that Donald Trump is not fit for office. Man. These people are obtuse.
I'm not sure, to Sarah's point, because, there are so many and voters are confused. The one thing I will say that people should be on alert for is that when you have criminal cases, you often have missteps. Something can happen. And so Donald Trump will use those things as evidence as to why this is like a crooked case. It's normal in our judicial system to not.
No, wait. Prosecution might mess up, but don't worry. That's not a big deal. That's not a big deal. It happens all the time. So, defendants shouldn't use errors by the prosecution to amplify their position. Yeah, it's exactly what a defendant will do.
Always have a perfect streamline from point A to point Z, but it'll work in his favor to try and twist it and say, see, they're out to get me. And so they need to be prepared for that also.
How do you have to twist it if it actually happened? If it comes out through this court trial that something was not correct, that Michael Cohen lied or Stormy Daniels lied, how is that a misstep? Alvin Bragg, you better have your shiny boots on come Monday.
I think that this is not a great look for Trump. I mean, this is where I think analysis still hasn't quite shifted from primary to general election, right? Because
now she's talking like a political analyst. She's saying, the primary people, they're all in the tank for Donald Trump. But it's those independent people who are going to, see this trial for what we portray it as to try and shift their mindset. She has no idea.
In the primary, undoubtedly, Trump's legal troubles help him, right? People rally around him. They say this is a witch hunt, an attack. But in a general election, a lot of these sort of college-educated suburban swing voters don't love
college-educated suburban swing voters. You notice how she nailed that down to a very, very small minority. She's hoping that these group of people don't get swayed by what they see in the courtroom.
The look of a presidential candidate living in a courtroom. And so I think that his campaign seems to have not made the shift yet out of, primary mode.
Do you think it's going to be enough, Allison, Ashley, the existence of this trial, the fact that it is happening to grab people's attention at a time when it is very hard to grab people's attention for anything? Is it a big enough deal?
I don't know. I think
I'm not trying to say it should or it shouldn't. I mean, it seems like a huge deal to me, but can we? Is that possible?
With so much.
Notice how she says, she goes, it's a huge deal for me. It's a huge deal for CNN. Is it going to be big enough to grab other people's attention? Let me answer that for you. No, they don't get it. They refuse to get it. Nobody is watching them. No one cares what they think in their Beltway studios. More people will probably watch this video than that CNN show I just showed you. The people have moved away from CNN and MSNBC's messaging. It's ineffective. There's no doubt Trump support is actually growing. People don't care about these stupid trials. I guess these people on television don't understand what Americans really want. They don't understand what Americans really need right now. Here is what's on the mind of the American people.
Are you better off now than you were in January of 2021?
No, I'm not. I mean, that's me being honest. I'm working 5 times harder. When I calculate everything, hours worked to amount of money bringing in is nowhere near as high as it was.
Just 31% of Americans approve of how Biden is handling this economy, 56% disapprove. And this is interesting. Just 13% of Americans say they've gotten better financially since the president took office.
Our latest ABC News poll shows 4 in 10 Americans say they're worse off than when you were elected. Only 16% said they were better off.
More than half of the country disapproves of Biden's job performance, weighed down by significant discontent over the economy. 40% say they are worse off financially than they were 2 years ago. The most negative response to that question in nearly 40 years of our polling.
What do you say to the 44% of Americans who say they are worse off now than they were before Biden took office?
An exclusive News Nation Decision Desk headquarters poll out this morning reveals almost every American, a staggering 97%, is somewhat or very concerned about soaring prices.
The one thing I can't believe is that on my previous job, I got paid $5 less an hour than I do on this one, and I was better off at that time than I am right now.
We don't care about this lawfare. Get it through your heads. We don't care. We see the failings of the Biden administration every single day, and these trials aren't going to change those errors and mistakes and ignorance of the Biden administration. And you can't. And you won't be able to convince Americans otherwise. That's why we've tuned out the mainstream media. Your days of gaslighting us and not being called out, those days are gone. They're over. A big part of this is we see the gross injustices that you guys are pushing on Donald Trump while you sit in your studios and laugh it off. Here's Donald Trump talking about the judge in this New York case.
I was recently informed that another corrupt New York judge, Juan Merchan, gagged me. That's gagged like you can't talk. But he gagged me with respect to a case that everyone, including the DA, felt should never have been brought. Plenty of people have gagged me recently because when I talk in New York, I explain to the people and they understand these cases are all rigged. It sounds fair, doesn't it, to be gagged, but it's not. It virtually never happens. It only happens to me because I'm able to tell people what's happening, and those people get extremely angry with what's happening. This judge should be recused, and the case should be thrown out. He's totally conflicted. There's never been a judge more conflicted than this one. There has virtually never been anything like it.
I could spend the next 30 minutes going over all the corruption evidence about Judge Merchan, but suffice it to say, there is so much evidence out there, so many stories about how corrupt this judge is. And this one post on Twitter, X, perfectly sums it up, and it's from an unlikely source. It's from Michael Avenatti. You remember that guy? Michael Avenatti, who was Stormy Daniels' attorney at one point? Michael Avenatti, from a jail cell, made a tweet, a post, that completely obliterates this farce of a trial. This is what he posted. We can't be hypocrites when it comes to the First Amendment. It's outrageous that Cohen and Daniels, talking about Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels, can do countless TV interviews, post on social, and make money on bogus documentaries, all by talking shit about Donald Trump. But he's gagged and threatened with jail if he responds. He sees it. He's sitting in jail and he's saying, hey man, this is absurd. Now you may be saying to yourself, Michael Avenatti is quite the slimeball. And that may be true. But what about Stormy Daniels herself? Look at what she wrote. All right, so this is a letter that Stormy Daniels herself wrote. It looks kind of small, hope you guys can see it, but it says, to whom it may concern, and this is from January of 2018. It says, over the past few weeks, I've been asked countless times to comment on reports of an alleged sexual relationship I had with Donald Trump many years ago. Many years ago. The fact of the matter is that each party to this alleged affair denied its presence or existence in 2006. 2011, 2016, 2017, and now again in 2018. So she's been asked about this over and over and over, and she says she's always denied it. Now, here comes the important part. Let's look at this in a blown up, because this next sentence says it all. I am not denying this affair because I was paid hush money, in quotation marks, as has been reported in overseas-owned tabloids. I am denying this affair because it never happened. I will have no further comment on this matter. Please feel free to check me out on Instagram at @TheStormyDaniels, signed in her signature, Stormy Daniels. She just said she was never given any hush money. Did she lie? I don't know, but a jury is going to have to look at that. Michael Avenatti basically said she was BS. And we all know that Michael Cohen is full of crap. Michael Cohen is the star witness, and he's basically a convicted felon. This entire trial is a charade. In any event, barring a last-minute change or surprise, this show is moving forward on Monday. The left seems to think that these show trials are going to take away support from Donald Trump. They couldn't be more wrong. With every day in court, Donald Trump will continue to get stronger and stronger, and his support will grow and grow. And unfortunately for these reporters on CNN and MSNBC and elsewhere, there's nothing they can do about it. So the only thing you can do is get your popcorn and enjoy the show on Monday. And if I could give the networks a little hint, let me just tell you guys, we don't care what you say. All you're doing is pissing us off. Let me know what you think about the show trial, the corrupt judges, the lying media, and everything we're going to see over the next couple of weeks. All it's doing to me is making my support for Donald Trump grow even stronger. How about you? Let me know in the comments. I just can't with these people anymore. Talk to you soon.
It's showtime.